Stop whatever you are doing right now, because the mask did not just slip off the Blueface circus. It was ripped off, on camera, by the last person anybody expected, the brand new mother of his newest baby. Fresh out of the delivery room, hours after giving birth, Nevaeh got on a live stream and called her entire relationship with Blueface exactly what millions of viewers suspected, but nobody inside the house was ever supposed to say out loud. A show. One word. One tiny slip of the tongue. And suddenly every fight, every tear, every baby shower explosion, every street brawl you have watched unfold over the last few weeks snaps into focus like a crime scene photo finally coming into resolution. But here is the part that should genuinely scare everybody in that house. Because while the women are playing their roles for the cameras, the consequences piling up around them are terrifyingly real. A newborn baby nearly injured on livestream. A pregnant woman named Replaceable being shamed and dismissed before her child is even born. A street fight that left Blueface flat on the pavement. A grandmother waving around a DNA test kit. And whispers of CPS circling that household for the third family in a row. Tonight we are breaking down all of it. Nevaeh's confession, Relly's pregnancy, the chain Jaidyn Alexis refuses to take off, Chrisean Rock's latest brawl, Carliss's DNA bombshell, and the one brutal truth that ties every single woman in this saga together. Stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you will never watch a single one of Blueface live streams the same way again. Let's start with the moment that changed the entire conversation. Nevaeh just gave birth. And before we get into the chaos, let's acknowledge the timeline, because the timeline is where the insanity lies. In the span of basically one news cycle, Nevaeh grabbed a knife during a confrontation when Chrisean Rock showed up at the house. Blueface attended Nevaeh's baby shower and reportedly invited other women to it, then walked out of that same baby shower to leave with Chrisean Rock. Ended up in a street altercation that we are absolutely going to dissect frame by frame later. And then, as if somebody yelled cut and reset the scene, Nevaeh's water breaks, and she and Blueface ride to the hospital, playing the happiest little family you have ever seen. If you watch that sequence of events without context, you would assume you were watching a scripted reality show with the world's most reckless writer's room. And according to Nevaeh herself, that assumption might be closer to the truth than any of us realized. Because during a live stream after the birth, in the middle of an argument with Blueface, Nevaeh referred to what they were doing as her word, the show. Not our relationship, not our family, the show. And the second that clip started circulating, the comment sections across every platform turned into a collective gasp, because fans had been saying for months that 85% of what we watch from this crew is performance, manufactured tension, scripted blow-ups, breakups timed to posting schedules. But suspicion from the audience is one thing. Confirmation from inside the house is something else entirely. Nevaeh did not get exposed by a blog. Nevaeh got exposed by Nevaeh. And that single word reframes everything we have watched her endure. The disrespect, the public humiliation, the other women paraded through her timeline. Because now we have to ask the ugliest question in this entire saga. How much of her pain is performance? And how much of it is a woman slowly realizing she signed up for a role she cannot quit? And here is where it gets darker, because the answer is, it's both. That is the trap nobody warns you about. Blueface has, by all appearances, sold everyone around him on the idea that the chaos is content. The arguments are bits. The other women are storylines. The disrespect is just engagement farming. And maybe the cameras and the live streams and the posting schedules really are calculated. But the cheating underneath the content is not a storyline. The children underneath the content are not props. When Nevaeh's older son, and now her newborn, grow up and go back through thousands of hours of archived footage of their mother being disrespected, devalued, and dismissed for clicks, nobody is going to be able to hand those kids a release form and tell them it was just entertainment. The show ends when the stream cuts off. The damage does not. And that is the part of this story that stops being funny the second you really sit with it. Now let's talk about the newest member of this ever-expanding roster, because the internet has officially lost its mind over Replaceable. If you have not been keeping up, Replaceable is the woman who is currently pregnant, allegedly by Blueface, and a loud section of the internet has decided, for reasons that remain scientifically unclear, that Replaceable is somehow the class act of the group. The mature one. The one who's above the mess. And I need to push back on that gently but firmly, because respectfully, to whom? Let's think about this logically. Replaceable is a grown woman, 29 years old. She did not meet Blueface in 2018 before the world knew who he was. She met a man whose entire personal life has been broadcast in high definition for years. The rotating women, the public disrespect, the jail stint, the children, the chaos. Every single red flag was not just visible, it was trending. And she still walked into that situation, made contact, and ended up pregnant by a man who, to this day, has refused to publicly and fully acknowledge her. That is not a judgment of her worth as a human being. That is a judgment of the mythology forming around her, because you cannot watch a house burn down for 5 straight years, walk in with a match, and then be shocked that it is hot in there. And to Relly's credit, her delivery is different. She speaks well. She carries herself with a polish that reads very differently from the raw chaos of the rest of the roster, and I understand why people look at her and think she is operating on another level. But here is what everyone needs to understand. We do not actually know Relly yet. We know a curated version. She is on the outside of the house, outside of the daily livestream grind, and the only permanent, unbreakable connection she has to Blueface is a baby he will likely never claim with the energy that child deserves. So when Relly gets online and suggests people are trying to shame her, and to be clear, nobody should be cruel to a pregnant woman, period, we also have to be honest about the territory. When you step into the most documented love pentagon on the internet and start posting about it directly, indirectly, and roundabout, attention is part of the package you ordered. You cannot check the box for visibility and then file a complaint when the visible parts get discussed. That is not shaming. That is the invoice. And while we are handing out reality checks, let's address the fantasy that has taken over certain corners of the fandom. The idea that Jaidyn Alexis or Chrisian Rock could simply snap their fingers, summon Blueface back, and have Nevaeh escorted off the premises like a fired intern. I have seen this theory posted with full chest confidence, and I am here to tell you it is pure fan fiction. Let me explain why, and I need you to really hear this part. The order has shifted. Whatever gravitational pull Jaidyn Alexis once had over Blueface, the ability to influence his decisions, to leverage the kids, to set terms, that era is over. How do we know? Because he is now publicly saying things like forget the kids, he can go make a whole new family. When a man starts talking like that, the old levers stop working. Jaidyn Alexis built her position on being the first lady of the flock, the one with the history, the one with the children, Javaughn and Journey. But watch how Blueface is treating Javaughn and Journey right now. Pushed to the wayside in the fallout of everything that happened with Jaidyn Alexis. If the kids themselves are no longer sacred ground, then the woman who shares those kids does not hold the veto power the internet thinks she does. Now, if we are ranking the fantasy drafts, Chrisian Rock has a statistically better shot at pulling Blueface back into her orbit than Jaidyn Alexis does, and the receipts are behavioral, not emotional. Watch the pattern. Chrisian Rock says she is done, says she is not with him, says she wants him to grow up, and then she is on a live stream with him. Then she is at the baby shower aftermath with him. Then they are leaving together. Blueface, whatever else you want to say about him, keeps demonstrating through his actions that his romantic attention still orbits Chrisian Rock in a way it simply does not orbit anyone else. When he left Nevaeh's baby shower, let me say that slower, because it deserves the wait. He walked out of the celebration for his own incoming child and left with Chrisian Rock. That is not nothing. That is a man showing you his hierarchy in real time. So when Chrisian says she can have him back whenever she wants, there is a version of events where she is not entirely bluffing. But, and this is the part both women refuse to internalize, even Chrisian Rock cannot evict Nevaeh, because that decision does not belong to Chrisian, and it does not belong to Jaidyn Alexis. It belongs to exactly one person, and that person is Blueface. He is the axis. He is the throne and the revolving door at the same time. And he has already told us how he feels, publicly, in his own words, when he said he is not leaving his girl because she put up with a whole lot more. Read that sentence again. That is Blueface telling you that Nevaeh's tolerance is precisely why Nevaeh stays. Her willingness to absorb the disrespect is not a glitch in his system. It is the feature he selected for. So to everyone in the comments drafting eviction notices on Jaidyn's behalf or Chrisian's behalf, save the ink. There will be moments where he leaves with Chrisian. There will be moments where he dangles reconciliation in front of Jaidyn Alexis. But the woman sleeping in that house is not going anywhere until he himself decides the lease is up. And based on every observable data point, that day is not circled on anyone's calendar. And honestly, I need the audience to sit with one more uncomfortable observation, because a commentator said something recently that explains more about this family structure than 100 live streams. Men will take care of the children who are within their proximity. Sit with that. Of course you see him tending to Nevaeh's older son. Of course you see him present for the newborn. He lives there. Proximity is doing the parenting. Meanwhile, Javaughn and Journey, the children everyone assumed would always hold the highest rank in his heart, the kids of Jaidyn Alexis, are being treated like casualties of their mother's fallout with him. If you had told the internet 2 years ago that he would ever sideline Javaughn and Journey, you would have been laughed out of the comment section. And yet here we are. Proximity over paternity. Whoever is in the house gets the version of him that shows up. Whoever is out of the house gets the version that posts about making new families. That is not a family structure. That is a shift schedule. Now let's get into the street fight, because I have watched the footage more times than I care to admit, and there is a detail in it that I have not seen enough people clock. So the scene. After the baby shower walkout, Blueface and Chrisean Rock end up in the streets, and a full-blown brawl erupts. Chrisean drops somebody. Say what you want about her decision-making. The woman has hands and a documented history of using them. But Blueface? Blueface hit the pavement. Hard. The same man who once got knocked clean through a boxing ring on camera has now been flattened on concrete. And the internet reacted exactly the way the internet reacts. He went down so hard the timeline started checking him for loose change. And look, on one level it is comedy. On another level, it is the erosion of the last shred of intimidation he had left. Respect is currency in his world, and you cannot keep spending it on public else. But the comedy is not why we are here. Watch the footage again and pay attention to what he does during the fight. Because a man who cared about the mother of his child, a man with any protective instinct at all, would be pulling bodies apart. De-escalating. Grabbing Chrisean Rock and getting her out of there before somebody's cousin shows up with something that does not miss. Instead, watch his hands. He is shoving people, shoving them hard. But look at who he is shoving. He is pushing aside the very people who appear to be stepping in to break it up. And in the most damning beat of the entire clip, he physically moves a woman toward Chrisean so the fight can continue. Read that again. He did not stop the fight. He stage managed it. He cleared the lane so his child's mother could keep swinging on a stranger in the street. What kind of man does that? What kind of father engineers extra rounds for a brawl his baby mama is in, when one wrong second, one weapon, one car, one bad fall, turns a viral clip into a eulogy? Chrisean Rock has already lived through being cornered and jumped. That experience is literally what pushed her into boxing. She, of all people, knows how fast a street situation graduates from fists to funerals. And Blueface stood there feeding it like a promoter working a crowd. Somebody could have pulled a gun. Somebody always can. And then what? Then Blueface is on a live stream crying into the camera, and Junior grows up watching the footage. Everybody in that circle needs to understand. If anything ever happens to Chrisean, the vultures around him will not mourn Junior, they will monetize him. And speaking of the courtroom of public opinion, let's check in on Carlisa, because Blueface's mother has once again inserted herself into the storyline with the subtlety of an air horn at a funeral. Carlisa is now out here making claims so heavy I am going to handle them carefully. Allegations, unverified, but stated publicly, including insinuations serious enough that I will not repeat them as fact, because repeating an unproven claim about someone's life is not commentary. It is a lawsuit with extra steps. What I will say is this. Carlisa also produced a photograph of a grandparent DNA test kit, strongly implying she wants to verify whether Chrisean Jr. is actually her biological grandchild. A grandmother. Publicly. Floating a paternity question about a toddler. Think about what that child inherits. Not genetically, digitally. Before Chrisean Jr. can spell his own name, there is a permanent, searchable record of his own grandmother questioning whether he belongs to the family. That is not protecting your son, Carlisa. That is salting the earth your grandson has to grow up in. And here is the pattern with Carlisa that nobody connects loudly enough. Watch her behavior every time he settles into an exclusive stretch with one woman. When it was Jaidyn Alexis holding the house down, Carlisa found a reason to fall out with Jaidyn Alexis. When Chrisean Rock had his attention, Carlisa was online calling Chrisean every name a mother should never have to hear. And yes, she went as low as crackhead and prostitute, her own words, aimed at the mother of her grandchild. And now that Nevaeh is the one in the house, fresh out of a delivery room, who is Carlisa circling? Nevaeh. Same playbook, new target. It is a rotation as reliable as the seasons. The woman does not have a problem with any individual girlfriend. She has a problem with whoever holds the position, which tells you the grievance was never personal. It is territorial. And it is corrosive, because every single one of these public blow-ups becomes permanent footage in the archive these children will one day scroll through. Now, the newborn. Because I know the comment sections are already typing, so let me address it head-on. The baby looks like Blueface. I am not a laboratory, and nobody should treat facial comparisons as legal documentation, but we all have eyes. That baby has Blueface's nose, not approximately, specifically, the exact same shape. The lips track. The eyebrows track. And I will be honest with you, when people first asked me whether I believed the paternity noise swirling around this pregnancy, I kept my mouth shut, because the whole Who's the Daddy circus smelled like a manufactured engagement scheme from day one. I was not about to lend my voice to a mystery that was invented for clicks. And I am glad I stayed quiet, because the baby arrived looking like a photocopy, and every random man who popped up online auditioning for the role of possible father has gone conspicuously silent. There was even some character running around claiming he was getting a paternity test, chasing his 15 minutes off a newborn's face. Cloud is a drought, and people will drink from any puddle. But the child's face ended that conversation. Next topic. Except, Chrisean Rock apparently did not get the memo, because she got online and said she could not feel in her spirit that the baby was his. Girl, stop. I say that with love, but stop. That kind of spiritual paternity test does one thing and one thing only. It keeps confusion profitable. And confusion is the one currency this entire economy runs on. Every vague post, every felt it in my spirit claim, every deleted tweet is another deposit into the chaos account that keeps all of them trending. Chrisean Rock does not need a DNA swab to know exactly what she was doing with that comment, and neither do we. Let's go back to Jaidyn Alexis for a moment, because there is a visual detail that tells you everything about where her head actually is. Days after everything that went down, after the fallout, after the disrespect, after being publicly discussed like an expired contract, Jaidyn Alexis was spotted wearing the chain. The chain he gave her, still on her neck. And she has said, out loud, that she can still have him if she wants him. Now combine that with the established rhythm of this relationship. When Jaidyn Alexis and Blueface are at odds, suddenly the prayers come out. The hands go up to the Lord. The spiritual posts bloom across the timeline. When they are back on, the halo goes back in the drawer, and they are together like nothing happened. This is not judgment. This is pattern recognition. The chain is not jewelry. The chain is a title belt. Jaidyn Alexis wears it to remind the other contenders that she held the championship first, and she wears it to remind Blueface that the door from her side is never fully locked. So to everyone posting that Jaidyn Alexis is over it, healed, and moved on, the neck says otherwise. The neck always says otherwise. And Blueface knows all of this. Never forget that. The man recently got on camera talking about how he left his watch somewhere and planned to go retrieve it. A transparent euphemism for stepping out, again, while his newborn daughter's mother recovers at home. And the internet debated whether it was content or confession. Here is the answer, and it is the key to this entire empire. It is both. It is always both. The show is real, and the cheating is real. The arguments are staged, and the wounds are real. He has built the perfect machine, a reality where every betrayal can be dismissed as a storyline, and every storyline generates real betrayal. He tells Nevaeh it is a show while genuinely entertaining other women. He tells Chrisean Rock it is love while keeping Nevaeh in the house. He tells Jaidyn Alexis there is a door open while publicly ranking her loyalty beneath everyone else's. 3 women, 3 completely different scripts, 1 author. And the genius of it, the dark, cynical genius, is that every woman in the cast believes she is the exception to a pattern that has never once had an exception. Nevaeh watched him mistreat Jaidyn Alexis and Chrisean Rock for years and believed she was special. Chrisean watched him cycle through women and believed she was the soulmate. Jaidyn Alexis watched everything and believed the chain meant tenure. And Relly, 29 years old with a full high-definition archive of evidence available to her, believed she would be handled differently. The cast changes. The script does not. Go pull the old footage. Compare the early Blueface and Chrisean Rock clips against the current Blueface and Nevaeh clips, and tell me you do not see the identical formula. The same insults, the same you came with nothing energy, the same cycle of affection and degradation. The only variable is how much each woman will absorb. Nevaeh absorbs more and leaves less, and that is precisely why Nevaeh is the one currently wearing the title of main character. But now we have to shift from the ridiculous to the genuinely alarming, because there is a moment from Nevaeh's own post-birth livestream that crossed a line no storyline should ever cross. Nevaeh, days removed from giving birth, stomach still recovering, saw something on a screen, allegedly Blueface communicating with Chrisean Rock on a livestream, and reacted. And in that reaction, she was holding her newborn baby in the crook of her forearm while lunging and reaching and scrambling to shut something off. And in the chaos, that tiny infant's head got hit. A newborn, days old, jostled like a prop in a scene because the show had to keep rolling and the argument could not wait 90 seconds for the baby to be put down. And I need every mother watching to understand something. This is not about piling onto Nevaeh. This is about the math of the environment she has chosen to livestream from. Because here is what the audience of that house has already proven, repeatedly, across 3 different women, they call the authorities. They called on Jaidyn Alexis's household over the kids' welfare. They have called CPS on Chrisean Rock more times than anyone can count. They called the police when viewers thought Blueface kicked Nevaeh in the back during a stream. The audience of this show is not passive. They are a volunteer surveillance state with the non-emergency line saved in their favorites. So when a newborn's head clips a surface on camera in the middle of a domestic scramble, Nevaeh needs to understand that the next knock on that door might not be a delivery driver. And what makes it worse is that this is a filmed show where the evidence captures itself. It does not matter if the clip gets deleted. It does not matter if it gets clipped, cropped, or memory holed. Somebody screen recorded it. Somebody always screen records it. Nevaeh, if you are going to fight for your position in that house, fight smarter. There should be a bassinet within arm's reach at all times. Put the baby down, then go see who he is talking to. The stream can wait. The man will still be cheating when you get back. That part of the schedule never changes. Which brings us to Blueface himself, and I want to end his section with a warning rather than a punchline, because the trajectory here is pointing somewhere nobody in that house wants to go. Look at the accumulating pattern. The street fights. The jail stint he barely walked out of. The constant escalation for content. The entourage energy where every disagreement becomes a public event with cameras rolling and bodies colliding. Jaidyn Alexis has already claimed publicly that Blueface got pressed and pimp-slapped in jail. Her allegation, not mine. And whether or not that specific story is true, it speaks to a reputation that is decaying in every direction at once. The streets do not respect him anymore. The internet laughs at him. And a man who is losing respect while chasing virality is a man who takes bigger and bigger swings to get the respect back. And bigger swings, in his world, mean handcuffs or a hospital. The next headline about Blueface is not going to be about a baby or a chain or a live stream. If he does not sit down somewhere, the next headline is going to be about a charge or a tragedy. He is surrounded by cameras 24 hours a day, manufacturing evidence against himself in real time. In a country where prosecutors love a celebrity and footage never forgets. Every stream is a deposition he does not know he is giving. And can we talk about the selective outrage for 1 second? Because there is a detail in Nevaeh's reactions that exposes the entire pecking order. When he talks about Christian Rock, Nevaeh's energy goes through the roof. The knife moment, the blow-ups, the live stream confrontations. But when he casually mentions stepping out with some other, unnamed woman, Nevaeh barely flinches. Interesting, right? Christian is treated as the threat because Christian is the brand name, the rival with a fan base, the storyline with history. The anonymous women are treated as scenery. But here is what Nevaeh refuses to calculate. The scenery is what gets people pregnant. It was not a headline rival who produced the current baby boom across Blueface roster. It was the women in the background, the Rellies, the ones nobody was watching. Relly is pregnant right now not because of the show, but because of everything happening off camera while the show keeps everyone distracted. And if Nevaeh keeps aiming all her artillery at Christian Rock while ignoring the unnamed rotation, she is going to learn the hardest lesson this house teaches. The woman you are fighting is rarely the woman you should be worried about. What happens when he ramps things back up with Jaidyn Alexis, the mother of Javaughn and Journey, the one with the chain, the one with the longest claim? Is Nevaeh going to buck at Jaidyn Alexis the way she bucks at Christian Rock? Or does the outrage only activate for certain rivals? If you are going to play a position in this circus, at least learn to play the whole board. So let's bring this all the way home, because every thread in this story, the show comment, the street fight, the DNA kit, the chain, the watch euphemism, the injured infant, the pregnant outsider, is the same thread. It is one man who discovered that chaos is a renewable resource and built an entire economy where the women around him generate the content, absorb the damage, and carry the children, while he collects the engagement checks and rotates the cast. Nobody is running Blueface. Blueface is running everybody. Nevaeh is not winning. She is currently cast in a role with no exit interview. Christian Rock is not the soulmate. She is the reliable recurring character he calls when ratings dip. Jaidyn Alexis is not the queen in exile. She is the franchise veteran keeping her name warm with a chain and a prayer schedule. Relly is not the exception. She is next season's storyline, already filming her establishing shots. And Carlisa is not the protective matriarch. She is the heckler with a ringside seat and a posting addiction. Every single one of them knows the game, and every single one of them keeps playing, because the alternative, a normal life, off camera, undisturbed, unpaid, apparently feels worse than the humiliation. That is the real show. The live streams are just the commercials. And let's be honest about our own seat in this arena for a moment, because the audience is not an innocent bystander in this economy. The audience is the investor. Every time a clip of Nevaeh crying gets clipped, captioned, and reposted, somebody gets paid. Every time the fight footage circulates, somebody gets paid. Every time one of us rage comments on a picture of a pregnant woman we have never met, a number goes up on a dashboard somewhere. And that number is the entire reason the behavior never stops. The algorithm does not grade on morality. It grades on motion. And this family produces more motion than a Category 5 storm, which is why the machine keeps feeding them and why they keep feeding the machine. We are not watching the circus. We are buying the tickets, and then we act surprised that the show keeps getting renewed. So let me tell you exactly what happens next, because the pattern is so consistent at this point that the future is basically a rerun. Within the next 90 days, watch for it. Blueface and Nevaeh will have a soft-focus reconciliation arc, conveniently timed to the baby's first months, with just enough affection on camera to reset the storyline. Crazy Rock will announce a fresh start, a new city, a new faith journey, a new lease on life. And it will trend for exactly as long as it takes for the first phone call to pull her back into the frame. Jaidyn Alexis will post something carefully ambiguous, something devotional or defiant, and somewhere in the photo, that chain will catch the light just enough for the blogs to do the rest. Replaceable will give one polished interview where she says all the measured, mature things, and the comments will crown her the different one, right up until the moment the cameras find a crack. And Carlisa will be in the middle of all of it, posting through it, because silence has never once been her brand. Screenshot this prediction. When it all comes true, come back and tell me I was wrong. And before I get out of here, let me say the part one actually care about, because it is easy to laugh at this circus, and I have done my share of laughing tonight. But there are children in every frame of this story. Junior, Javaughn, Journey, Nevaeh's older son, a newborn girl, an unborn baby on the way, 6 children, at minimum, who did not audition for any of this, who will grow up able to search their own names and find thousands of hours of their parents' worst moments monetized in high definition. Kids do what they see. That is not an opinion. That is developmental fact. And what these kids are seeing, in an endless loop, is that love looks like disrespect, that family looks like a rotation, and that attention is worth any amount of humiliation. Everybody asks why children raised in chaos grow up and recreate it. This is why. It is being filmed. You are watching the tutorial. Now I want to hear from you, because the comment section is where this conversation really lives. 3 questions, and I will be reading every single answer. First, Nevaeh called it a show with her own mouth. So be honest, how much of this saga do you believe is scripted, and does it even matter if the damage is real? Second, is Replaceable actually any different from the rest of the roster, or is she just the newest woman learning the oldest lesson? And third, the one I really want you to fight about, who actually holds the power in Blueface's world? Nevaeh in the house, Crazy Rock in his heart, or Jaidyn Alexis with the history and the chain? Because from where I am sitting, the answer is none of them, and it never was. Drop your take below, and do not hold back. And understand what is actually at stake in the months ahead, because this is no longer just relationship gossip. It is a paper trail. Every one of these live streams is time-stamped evidence. Every fight clip is an exhibit. Every custody dispute, every paternity question, every CPS call that has already been made against this circle now lives in a searchable archive that lawyers, caseworkers, and future employers can pull with a single query. Blueface is building, stream by stream, the most thoroughly documented custody battle in internet history, and he is doing it voluntarily for ad revenue. When the court dates come, and they always come for families living at this temperature, nobody in that house is going to be able to claim they did not know how it looked. The footage will testify long before anyone else does. And listen, this story is nowhere near finished. Replaceable still has a baby on the way, and the day that child arrives, this entire power structure reshuffles again. Carlisa still has that DNA kit, and if those results ever see daylight, it will be the biggest explosion this family has ever produced, and that is saying something. And somewhere right now, Blueface is planning the next episode, because if there is one thing we know, it is that the show must go on. So make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, because when the next chapter of this circus drops, and it will drop, you are going to want to hear the breakdown here first. Check out the last video we did on this family if you missed how we got here, because the context will change how you see everything that happens next. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep your spirit protected, and remember, the cast changes, the script never does. I will catch you on the next one. And one more thing before we fully close the books on this chapter, because it deserves its own moment. There is a reason the same cycle keeps repeating with a new face every season, and it is not charm, and it is not love. It is structure. Blueface has architected a living arrangement where every woman is simultaneously an employee and a competitor, where job security is measured in affection and the performance review happens on a live stream. That structure does not produce happiness. It produces exactly what we keep watching: escalation. Because when your housing, your relevance, your child's proximity to their father, and your entire public identity all depend on one man's mood, you do not make calm decisions. You make desperate ones. You grab a knife when a rival shows up. You clutch a newborn while lunging at a phone. You wear a chain like armor and call it moving on. You announce a pregnancy into a fan base that is already sharpening its opinions. None of these women are crazy. They are rational actors inside an insane economy. And the man who built that economy sleeps fine, because no matter which woman wins the week, the house always wins the war. That is why she stays even while calling it disrespect. That is why Christian Rock leaves and returns like a season renewal. That is why Jaidyn Alexis prays publicly and reconciles privately. The exits exist. The women just cannot afford what walking through them would cost. So when you strip away the jokes, the knockouts, the memes, and the mess, what is left is a very old story wearing very new technology. A man with a platform. Women competing for proximity to it. Children absorbing the fallout. An audience funding all of it, one view at a time. The only thing he modernized was the distribution. Everything else, the triangle, the rotation, the favorite, the exile, the return, is a story as old as the phrase other woman. The difference is that this generation gets to watch it live, in real time, with a comment section acting as the Greek chorus, screaming warnings that the characters will never take. And maybe that is the most honest thing she ever said on that live stream. It is a show. She just has not figured out yet that in this particular show, the actors do not get paid in money. They get paid in damage, and the reruns last a lifetime.